name is Alan Kasuja. This is the Fourth Estate on NTV. And I've got Sisi Kagaba is the Executive Director of the Anti-Corruption Coalition. Madam Betty is the President of the Federal Alliance. Frank is a parliamentarian and NRM diehard. And Angelo couldn't care less. He is one of those guys who's neither here nor there as far as politics is concerned. So we're talking about various things relating to the budget.
Frank is, you want to say something about that?
About what?
But he votes.
He's not a
He can't be here, there, or near there. He votes.
Yeah.
If someone who votes, you need to be careful.
All right, fair enough.
He is somewhere.
But Sisi, this whole thing of fiscal discipline, maybe not that, but let's talk about budget discipline, which is an area that you have a particular interest in. The fact that the Parliament is inundated often with supplementary budgets and the need for them. Is it because of lack of planning? Is it because of deliberate indiscipline? What do you put it down to?
The first one, of course, is deliberate indiscipline. And then secondly, remember that actually some supplementary budgets, by the time they're brought before Parliament, they have already used the money. So more or less they're seeking permission retrospectively. Now you're going to find that the executive...
What's an example of that?
No, well, if you look at, like, I can give an example of the helicopters. When the president came and said, hey, I've used this money, I've already used, I've spent the money. Yeah. Definitely, yes, but the monies had already been used. So what the president wanted was retrospective approval from Parliament. And because Parliament has failed to put its foot down or set a precedent, because it can't happen once, twice, thrice, and you keep on, retrospectively approving.
What about the planning process? Are you happy with the way things
are
going? No,
definitely we're not. Of course, you see, the whole issue, of course, of supplementary budget is also affected. It actually stems down from planning, because there are certain things that are supposed to be foreseen, which should be captured within supplementary budgets. Because when you look at a budget that has salaries, you'll wonder, because I presume that when you're done at the planning process, you should envisage or foresee that you are going to need to recruit. So issues like salaries should already be captured in the main budget.
Have you failed to do that, Frank? Have you parliamentarians just failed to see what the needs of
First of all,
are?
let's first understand what is supplementary budget. Why is it important and why is it dangerous?
So you're saying she's talking about things she doesn't understand?
Not at all. Not that I am actually in agreement with her.
Right.
Maybe the levels of where we are taking the debate may be different. First of all, supplementary budgets distort the whole planning process. It's an issue that developing economies must resist from. Entities, MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies of government, as they often refer to them, should plan and budget for issues they want according to their work plans. Now, the point we are coming in as members of Parliament, we have been making noise over those issues, and I'm sure that's why the CC also pick them up. Now, we are going to amend the Public Finance and Accountability Bill is before our committee for amendment. And one of the issues we want to make operational, which is in the Constitution, is the contingency fund. Now, there are cases where supplementary budgets are inevitable.
You like which cases?
I mean, Bududa. Take the simplest one. The accounting officer of that ministry will simply tell you, I never envisaged that the hailstorm would be there.
What about State House?
So,
out to that.
Yes, State House is among the entities.
It's particularly notorious for coming back for more.
Yes, and they've been cautioned. But they also have cases that are justified. You get the point.
Give me an example.
Oh my God! I had the system making a very mistake that State House does not take money for entertainment. You will have the president taking money for zonal agriculture meetings. You have had the president intervening even in Bududa physically. Even when Prime Minister's office...
Should the president have to be the one to do that, though?
Well, he's the head of state. He directs interventions accordingly.
Isn't it just down to the fact that there is no planning?
Let me make my point.
Make your point, because I need to bring that in here.
So there are cases where supplementary budgets are inevitable. And the solution for that, Alan, which you're going to need to know, is that if we created a contingency fund, which can be say 10% or 20% of the entire country's budget.
It wouldn't be sufficient because clearly the budget is...
You can give it, right a moment, you can give it whatever percent you want to give it. But it will only finance those core emergencies.
And Angela, you say it wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work. I spent the week actually reviewing the present Public Finance Bill 2012.
Hope you'll come to our committee and give us your issues.
Yes, and I'll tell you why. First of all, I want to say that if you want to be efficient as an individual, if you budget for food, healthcare, whatever, you lock that money. In Uganda, money can be moved from one ministry to another, from one entity to another, with just reckless abandon. That's the first thing.
Why is that so easy to do?
Well, first of all, it's just the guerrilla mentality of the government.
That
They used
is not
they used to be able
We're still rebels. I
Yeah.
don't know what you're saying.
They used to be able to.
Let me correct that impression. Reallocation of resources. If we appropriate money in parliament
Right.
and it is for entity X, you get the point. If you want it to reallocate it, you will do that with the consent of that entity. And that power is...
Doesn't make it right, though, does it?
I can say we planned for this this activity. It's no longer relevant. We are allocating to this activity.
But let me
Gorilla.
respond by saying that even under the current public finance architecture, like Sisi was saying, if you have a situation where the governor of the central bank tells the Financial Times of the UK that he was unable to stop the raiding of the consolidated fund to the point of $760 million because the executive pressured him, and that's just an extreme case.
Which police
you know,
force
right?
did he go to report the raid?
But the point here is that the central bank, by the way, is protected. Its independence is guaranteed constitutionally. So all this talk about making new laws and contingent funds without reviewing how the system actually operates, it's just nonsense.
No.
If
Government has a right to borrow from its reserves.
If the independence of the
it's
central
legal.
bank is breachable in that fashion, really.
A constitutional entity.
Yes.
I want to correct
And let me
that.
bring Betty in.
I
It's
want to
important that
correct
let me
that.
bring her in. Yeah, but Betty, are you agreeing? Who are you more inclined to? Is it Frank?
Yes, to myself. But I think I agree with Angelo and Sisi to the extent that the most important thing in this is the lack of restraint. In other places there will be contingencies, but the contingencies should be able to be absorbed with quick management of the internal budget. I'll give you an example. In countries like India, when the credit crunch or the global crisis happened, the first thing they did was to cut down, to make new measures. Members of parliament, for instance, were stopped from traveling first class.
But those are more symbolic than real measures, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Actually. They are. It's action.
Yeah.
So you contain the contingencies within your budget, because within the budget there are a few things. I mean, there's something I found extremely outrageous in Parliament. It may be a small thing, but if you cannot even reduce on the lavish breakfast or break tea you have, you cannot even reduce on a small thing like that. So you have a visitor and you're looking for a supplementary budget. When you have not reduced on the costs that you can reduce within that ministry or that institution,
a long time
and it should be done everywhere.
Yes.
So the reason we want supplementary budgets, one of the reasons, and a big one, is that we do not tighten belts. We continue with our lavish, typical African lavish. An African will call
Is it the caliber of parliamentarians we have? Is it because of the caliber, the quality of the parliamentarians? There are a bunch of guys who come from the village, they suddenly land.
No.
Alan, let me tell you. I think it's a typical African thing. I went with an Indian friend somewhere. I invited him to an institution. They had invited us to go and help them fundraise. And my Indian friend was shocked. The people who are asking, who have invited us to fundraise, they cooked food. Everybody had a heap full of a plate full of food, and they only ate half and threw away the other half. That is the way of life. So my Indian friend said, "But you cannot be asking me to come and raise funds."
Is it because, to an extent, ladies and gentlemen, we have a leadership in Uganda which has tried on many fronts and it has been successful on many fronts, but has not necessarily understood the essence of an effective bureaucracy?
Let me make one point quickly, which actually we are all agreeing on, but maybe what we need to know is how do we take it forward. Betty makes a very important point. We need to reform from the basic things we do. Why should a government entity take a consultative meeting to a hotel
Exactly.
Yet you have Ubos building that has the best conference
Parliament.
Because you love hotels. Will you start by making sure that your committee does cuts down on things like that?
Let me come a point.
Will the members of your committee agree to something like that?
They should agree. Members of parliament don't budget for food and all that. It's the bureaucracies of parliament which do that.
Yeah.
So
you wanted to react to my argument about the caliber of parliamentarians as well.
Yeah, you can't it to the lifestyle we lead. It's not members of parliament, honestly, who allocate money for breakfast and so on and
No,
so
but
forth.
they should talk to us.
Yes,
They are
but
appointed
where I
members.
agree with Betty is that we should have a policy across board. Last year, we were putting a freeze on buying new cars. Okay? By and large, we succeeded. But again, there was, yes, we succeeded. But there was this syndrome. You see, let's not talk always negatively.
Yeah, fair enough.
We succeeded, ministries were not buying new cars. But there was this syndrome they were hiding in, projects. You get it? Because ministries have got what they call MTEF, medium-term expenditure framework. But that's only limited to the budget appropriation. It's not extending to projects where donors pump in money. Okay,
yeah.
And you see more vehicles being bought. Actually, one
for example, one of the things that I've had an
one
issue
thing,
with,
Alan,
Rwanda
which actually
resolved this problem long time ago.
one thing, which actually the citizens should help us. The anti-coalition, the civil societies are donors who finance parallel projects, and you have people deviating from the mainstream structure of government.
Because the government will eat the money.
Government
officials will chew the money. That's what it is.
And therefore now, because the
Donors
civil
are funding
society,
projects directly
because the civil society funds money to programs that are not mainstreamed in the entire government program. If you want to finance a malaria program, you get it. There is already a structure in the Ministry of Finance that controls malaria. There is a primary health care department. Put that money directly, and it, yes.
I think
If you create a parallel program, now there you have a problem. But there is no limit to that.
Sisi, let's also.
That's where the lavish nature starts.
What do you say about
That's
that?
where the allowances start.
Well,
workshops.
I think the first one I'm going to, you know, when the Honorable is right when he said this. First and foremost, the state has a right to borrow. However, you need to follow procedure, not flouting
It follows procedure. It goes to Parliament all the time
yeah,
to
but
borrow.
you know, by the time they go to Parliament, they have already actually spent the money. Then secondly, you know, the whole thing of, you know, coming up with laws and creating other institutions, that will not work. Because
What will work?
No, the reason why am I saying this? Uganda is one of those laws that has very many, one of those countries that has very many laws and institutions on corruption. But what happens? I mean, the corruption levels keep going up every other day. Now, the reason why you find that certain CSOs will do parallel, because I mean, we can't put our money within, because we also don't trust the government.
It's actually not your money. It's those people who bring in the money.
Exactly. But you see, if government itself has failed to ably account for the funds that it has,
Its own money.
Its own money.
You actually you didn't understand. You did not understand my point.
Okay.
The projects I'm talking are within government ministries.
But still,
you go to
projects
Ministry
are
of
being
Health.
abused.
You go to gender. There are so many projects run by government people. You get the point. So they are buying new vehicles. They are buying new. So
Angelo intimated before you go for a quick break that Rwanda had sort of come up with solutions that have worked for them, relating especially to the vehicles that are being bought, and even Kenya has copied some of those models and decided to implement them. Why has Uganda been so slow to? Is it down to patronage, or is it down
Rwanda
to?
is a disciplined government. That's the difference.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about the element of patronage?
When the Rwanda government says that project funds and government funds should be fused and the same rules applied, therefore you cannot buy cars for projects when the government is cutting down, it goes ahead and does that.
So why can't that work in Uganda? Is it because we are in this?
I think there are different mentalities.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one. I have two people I know in their homes. One man says, "Me, I want my children to know that my children have eaten. I want food to stay on the plate." And another man says, "I don't want food. You cook enough." So I think that's the difference between Rwanda and Uganda.
So
we're so
Uganda
lavish.
We like to see food left on the plate for us to know that we really
left
eaten.
on the table. We're so lavish. We don't really go back to look at which areas can we save. And there's so many areas really where we can save. We don't run government as a personal business. We run government as an opportunity.
But on a positive note, Alan, is that we shouldn't also carry this pessimistic opinion all the time. A recent survey which has been done by the Auditor General, okay, and which was presented to our committee, it has shown, for example, that most entities which are kind of parastatals, okay, I think ranked number 1 was the Uganda Communications Commission, okay.
I went to brag about that thing that said nice things about Parliament.
No, please. Let me make my substantial point.
Okay, fair enough.
Is that when you look at the accountability practices, most entities are responsive to the queries of the Auditor General. Most entities are responsive to the critical mind and dust being raised from Parliament. We are seeing more accountability procedures being adhered to.
And we have also had stories about parliamentarians being paid, so that the scrutiny process is not necessarily very
Name
severe.
them, expose them, help us, expose them and keep
It
them
doesn't
out.
happen in Parliament?
It may. I don't want to speak for everybody.
Categorical. Does
I
it happen or does it not
don't know. I
happen?
really don't know. It's
Do you have
like,
cases where Parliament, for
it's
example,
like
the
the
PSC
question
committee is
it's-
compromised?
I honestly do not know. But as far as
So
I
I'm being
know,
dishonest.
our accountability committees give credit where it is due.
Right.
Last financial year,
Yeah.
all sessional committees, standing committees, whether opposition, whether NRM, really gave headache to accounting officers, trying to ensure that whatever fund is spent complies with the principle.
Let me give you a
No, but I don't think
part.
that's the point.
Let me give you one. Sorry, go ahead. Let him finish his point.
Last financial year,
Yeah.
we really made sure that allocative efficiency is achieved. Trying to tell accounting
That's a good
officers,
point.
yes, allocative efficiency vis-a-vis operational efficiency. You are putting money for
What's
this.
more important?
Yeah.
Both are. If you have the priorities wrong, then
Yeah.
your operational efficiency will
Fair
be
enough.
zero.
We need to go for a break.
So really, as Parliament,
Frank is talking
Yes.
about efficiency.
Yes.
We're talking about allocation of resources.
allocative efficiency
Management.
starts with that.
No, because if you say,
Okay, fair
if
enough.
you want to buy this glass
Yes.
at 1,000 shillings,
Yes,
it's okay,
yes,
you buy it.
yes.
But I'm saying, do you need a glass?
That's a good point.
They're two
But also, let me tell you a story
Yes,
that I've
yes,
had.
yes.
That if you want to neutralize the PSC committee, carry money bags and take it to certain people,
Yes.
strategically pay them
Yes.
off.
Then why do they
And then when
fear
you
it?
show up in Parliament,
Yes.
they'll make noise, but they'll know the end
Days.
result.
Why
Heads are not going to
why
win.
are then? Why do they fear park like anything? Why are people
It
being
is all an act.
No.
It's all an
Why
act.
are people leaving their jobs because of park recommendations? So the corruption crusade actually,
Yeah.
which some of you are
Like
pioneer.
Sisi.
Yes. Give credit to those making a mark.
Okay, fair enough.
Don't let them down.
Fair enough.
Yes.
You are watching The Fourth Estate on NTV. My name is Alan Kasuja. In a few moments, we'll be talking about implementation. We're talking about the budget, money, government, and you're more than welcome to give us feedback. Write to The Fourth Estate at ntvuganda.co.ug.